In our capitalist society, a person travels the halls of the elementary, middle, and high school system for 12 years on a designed course to graduate into the world as a potentially productive citizen. A person can also choose to continue their quest for knowledge by entering the higher education system for 4 to 8 more years. That person is on a course designed by our capitalist system and is expected to graduate from the educational course into the world as a productive citizen. In our religious society, a person is encouraged to travel to the traditional church house to be taught about becoming a child of God. In our religious society, a person continually enters the hallowed halls of the denominational church sanctuary to gain knowledge on becoming a more righteous or godly person. In our religious society, a person is urged to occupy a seat at various non-denominational religious convention centers, seeking to understand the deepest wisdom from the mind of God for scores upon scores of years. Yes, the organized religious system is a spiritual educational course designed by the God of Abraham, but we need to realize that the God of Abraham does expect a child of God to eventually graduate from this spiritual educational course and enter the world as a productive man or woman of God. Needless to say, the problem is the world's capitalist ideology has infiltrated into the minds of our denominational and non-denominational church organizations. Needless to say, the organized religious society's acceptance and use of this capitalist abomination produced this great spiritual desolation that has enveloped the globe. Yes, the capitalist ideology of the world allowed society's religious organizations to flourish and to experience unprecedented growth in membership structure and wealth. However, the underlying principle of capitalism is the love of money. More importantly, and as it is written, God pronounced that particular guiding principle to be the root of evil. Therefore, the acceptance, embracement, and employment of the capitalist ideology of the world within the Church of God caused a great spiritual desolation, first within the religious communities themselves. More importantly, this great spiritual desolation eventually spawned the current season of anguish, poverty, misery, and unhappiness that the world is experiencing. Yes, pastors, we can grow the church of God. Yes, bishops, we should build large spiritual schoolhouses to teach and develop the children of God. Yes, prophets, teachers, and ministers chosen by the God of Abraham, we should aim to reach masses across the globe. Yes, men and women chosen by God, we should be a force to be reckoned with financially, politically, as well as spiritually. Nevertheless, during our current drive to conquer the world for God, because of capitalism, our guiding principle evolved from doing it because we loved God to doing it because we needed money. Nevertheless, as we set out across the world to spread the gospel of God, we devised ways to produce worldly wealth from the messages God sent us to proclaim. Yes, the guiding principle of capitalism misguided the world, and this same principle will try to misguide the very church of God. Because of capitalism, pastors of our local churches worry more about how much money needs to be raised instead of how the children of God placed under their care are being raised. Because of capitalism, the leaders of our religious communities vie for the eye of the elite, famous, and rich in hopes of increasing their worldly influences instead of vying for the heart of God in order to increase their influence over the world. Because of capitalism, the ministers of God and their ministries have become rich by teaching and encouraging the children of God to give and tithe to God's spiritual schoolhouses and universities instead of teaching and encouraging their followers to tithe to the real storehouses of God by clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, praying for the sick, and taking care of the orphans, poor, and the widows for themselves. See, the American way is built upon the principles of capitalism, which is the love of money, and that is the root of evil. More importantly, the love of money is a God-pronounced abomination. Just like the forbidden fruit hanging from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the way of capitalism is a God-forsaken path leading to the lake of fire. Just like sheep led astray, our organized religious communities are being herded for destruction by many false prophets and misguided shepherds. Just as foretold many eons ago by the prophet Daniel, the abomination that causes desolation has been set up upon the holy altar of the God of Abraham. This abomination is none other than the capitalistic ideology of the love of money. The holy altar of God is none other than the hearts of mankind, because mankind is the temple of God. Nevertheless, that well-meaning expression of money cometh is not the words Jesus Christ would have chosen to say. Yes, the principle of capitalism produce worldly abundance, highly priced fame, material prosperity, political status, and uncountable wealth for the organized religious society. At the same time, the very first growth from this root of evil divided the people of the religious community into denominations and non-denominations. At the same time, this abomination drained the physical and spiritual substance from the masses as our religious leaders concentrated on building cathedrals, edifices, and temples instead of building and edifying the physical church of God. At the same time, the organized religious community, celebrities, and leaders followed and taught their followers to follow them instead of following the way of Christ. Yes, the principles of capitalism is a God-cursed abomination like the forbidden apple within the garden that caused more harm to mankind than good. Yes, the seed of capitalism brought notoriety, prestige, and respect to the leaders of the organized religious society, yet this root of evil and a detestable sin sapped the authority of God from the people of the religious community. Yes, the seed of capitalism produced wonderful opportunities to reach the masses of God's children with the message of God, yet the money misled many of God's shepherds to view God's precious sheep as just someone to fleece. Yes, the principles of capitalism, or the American way, led our religious community toward the open door of worldly prosperity. Yet, because of capitalism is the love of money, the people of the religious community lost the power of God.